All right, we're going to have that conversation later on in the program, talking about the Nigeria's debt to revenue ratio. But now we move on to another pressing conversation. Now, with figures obtained from the National Pension Commission, shows assets under the contributory pension scheme rose by 842.73 billion naira the first half of 2022 to hit 14.27 trillion naira as of the end of June. With rising cost of living squeezing households, what happens with pension contributions? For more, we have Tunji Andrews, CEO of ABBA, joining us right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we see that new high, hit, almost hitting the 10 million mark, talking about pension contributors. How do you see that figure?
I think it's a testament to the work that the regulator and pension fund administrators in Nigeria have been doing. We must realize that the pension system as of today is less than 20 years old. So this 14 trillion plus has been gathered in less than 14 years. And coming from a low trust base, where we had a former pension system that was not just adequate enough to cater for an expanding economy like Nigeria, this has been a lot of work by PENCOM and the pension fund administrators. And I just think it's a great thing that Nigerians have been able to look beyond the failures of the past and trust a new pension system, and we're here today.
All right, and looking at the headwinds, we're seeing right now with rising inflation, we're seeing central bankers tighten rates globally. How do you see, this figure going forward? Do you think we'll still get contributors, because their incomes are being squeezed, at this point? Some of them can't even, eat the way they used to. Talk less of contributing to that pension.
I think one of the things we always need to look at is that pensions is not an investment in itself. It's a saving. It's a insurance against poverty rather than an investment to get rich. So it should not be confused with both of them. So I honestly think that Nigerians can't afford not to save for pensions, because, look at, if today is hard, where you can still go and hustle for your daily 2K. What happens in that period when you can't go out and hustle for your daily 2K? Imagine how hard that will be. So I do not think we can afford not to save. And if you think about the economy, think about the possibility of having 20 million aged people who are in poverty. 30 million. Can Nigeria's health system afford it? Can Nigeria's catering system afford it? So I don't think we can actually afford to ignore pensions.
So looking at, how, the pensions work at this time, we saw quite a number of contributors switch their pension, managers. And I'm wondering, how are the, PFAs handling all of this switching? Quite a lot happened recently.
We hope to see a lot more in the coming future. It's just the whole idea to be able to give pension contributors more control over their pensions. Prior to now, before the transfer window was opened, if you were signed up to one pension fund administrator, you had no choice. You had to stay with that pension fund administrator. If they were giving you not so adequate service, you just had to stick with them. Today, you don't really have to care whether the service is adequate or not. You might just like the other brand. You might just prefer the return on investment that the other brand is giving, and then you want to switch. So it gives pension savers more control over their pensions. And I think it's a great thing. It happens across the world. Why not Nigeria?
And how's that impacting their services at this time?
So it has, and it's a great thing. This is a fantastic question, because prior to now, a pension fund administrator could just simply do nothing. If you were signed up to me, you have no choice. You must contribute. It's a legal requirement. But now I have to speak to you. I have to call you. I have to check up on you. I have to give you service. I have to give you an app. I have to give you more to make you stay with me, just the same way it's happened in the banking system. So the regulator has pushed this. So pension fund administrators now have to up their game to make sure that they keep their customers.
Quite interesting. And still talking about, most of these headwinds we've seen, we've also had, currency issues, with most emerging economies in Africa. And, with the dollar actually surging recently, that was, seen more, with African countries. We saw a lot of currency struggle. We've seen what happened, with the Naira here. And I'm wondering, how can, contributors still continue to save, in their currency without that risk of losing out in value?
So here's the thing, and it's a thing that pension savers should know. Devaluation is not a yearly occurrence. In 2019, for instance, the Naira was one of the best performing currencies in the world. So if you want to take 2020 in isolation, you would miss out the biggest scope of the fact that pension funds are not kept 1 year. They're kept over a period of 20 years, 30 years, 35 years. So if you want to look at it as a case of diminishing returns, you have to also look at it in that stretch, to look at it over a long period. So if your pension fund is doing an average of 12 to 13% over a period of 10 years, you're still covered. Capital is still being retained. And I think that's what pension funds are being able to do across Nigeria right now. And I think pension savers are in a safe place. But I do hear rumors that the regulator is looking at, more bullish investments for pension fund administrators. And I think when that happens, we will all hear about it.
Quite interesting. And, looking at, Nigeria's debt, we're going to have that conversation, later on. But some are saying that, the government shouldn't look at external borrowing at this time, that you can look, into some of these pensions, and that can actually help with economic development. But how do you see that, looking at where we are? We're not getting that much revenue.
See, and this is a personal opinion, by the way. I believe that the easier way for people to feel connected to their pensions is when they know that the pension fund was involved in the building of a train system, for instance. The pension fund was involved in the investment that built a hospital. The pension fund was involved in the investment that set up an IPP in your local area. That is a connection between the people and the pension. And I think that happens across the world. Right now, the regulator is, because of where we are coming from, very strict to where pension fund administrators can invest pension funds. But I think it is a place we should look at. And for us to even look at it, the government needs to come up with a robust investment plan for the pension fund and everybody else to plug into. So it's not a situation whereby the government says, give me the money, because that is not possible. But the government needs to look at investment, just the same way they go to the Eurobond market and, pitch to investors. They need to come and pitch to the pension fund administrators and say, this is what we have, this is the plan of returns, and if you can invest in this, you will get this kind of returns. And I think that will work.
Yeah, that should actually woo them,
exactly.
At this time. But looking at, micro pensions, that's been another angle that they've been trying to drive, at this point. How is it looking at this, right now? Because we know the drive has been there since late last year. We've seen micro pensions, conversations about that. How is it really looking? Are they biting at this point?
I want to give a lot of kudos to the Pension Operators Association of Nigeria, PENOP. They've been doing fantastic work in trying to drive enlightenment, drive innovation in the system. And they've been very supportive to companies like mine, who recently just launched a chatbot over WhatsApp to be able to make sure Nigerians, wherever they might be, are able to get access to just questions about what micro pensions is, and being able to onboard also on WhatsApp. And we're seeing more innovations like that. You will be able to see in the coming future dedicated payment platforms for pensions and micro pensions specifically. So there is a lot going on in the background to make sure that Nigerians, whoever they might be, wherever they might be working, are able to get access to this. It's a long road. Ghana has been able to successfully start ahead of us, and they've been ahead of us. But I think with what we're doing in terms of innovation, we would not only catch up with Ghana in a very short period, we'll be able to surpass them in the next 1 to 2 years.
And talking about innovation, now what else are you seeing, coming up in the future?
I don't want to, start to speak too much, but, like I said, one of the things we've seen is the chatbot over WhatsApp in the innovative space. But what we're particularly wanting to happen is for people to be able to interact with their pensions the way they interact with their banks. The way you open your bank app, you're able to move money here, you're able to do this, you're able to, speak to your account officer. We want that level of interactivity with pensions, and that is already in the works. Like I said, PENOP is doing a fantastic job. They're supporting people like us in the industry, and obviously in the next 6 months, you'll start to see those rollouts, and you'll be really, really proud of Nigeria's pension industry.
That'll be interesting to see. We'll keep tracking that industry to see how, because we have to, save for those rainy days,
It is a huge conversation, because what scares me is Nigeria has a population, the large concentration of our population is between 14 and 40. They're not going to remain 14 and 40 forever.
Exactly.
When they get to 60, 70, 80, it starts to scare you if they do not have any savings, to take care of them in old age. And look at the poverty levels now. Imagine that in large numbers in another 30 years.
And the squeeze is still squeezing, at this point with most of these headwinds. All right, thank you so much, Tunji Andrews, CEO Awaba. It was great having your perspective on the show today.
Thank you for having me.